Hey, Freddie from MaxTrack and Axis UK here. Just going to have a quick look through the Surge foil from Axis. I've done a few bits and bobs with Adrian and Shinny and a couple of the shops in the UK, but there's nothing quite like putting your own thoughts down on video and maybe stretching into it a little bit more than I have done on those videos. The Surge is a new performance surf foil from Axis. We've had it since the tail end of 2025, I think now. We're still struggling with stock. It's been quite a nice seller for us, which is obviously good, but it means that I haven't used too many of them, namely the bigger sizes, essentially the 1010 and the 950 we haven't managed to keep in stock yet, so I haven't had a go on those. Who's it for? What is it? It's a surf foil, but don't let that put you off. The way I've been trying to reframe my brain or explain to people is 90% of what we're doing here in the UK, this foil is perfect for. And that's why we were banging on about wanting to get hold of it for a long, long time. The first time I jumped on this in America, I came off the water, I ran straight up to Adrian to give him back his foil, and I said, stop building everything else you're building and just send me those. This is all we need for our UK conditions. The bulk of folk in the UK, and let's say Northern Europe as well, we're wing foiling. We're playing around on beach breaks, we're parking up, riding in front of our car, coming back to our car. We're not doing massive sends. It's getting there a little bit with the power winging, but realistically we are riding beach breaks. We might be smashing around our local lakes and reservoirs, doing some few jumps and bits and bobs and doing some nice turns and jives and tacks, but that's what we're doing, and that's where the Surge comes into its own. So if you're on the Axis system, and you may be on something like the Spitfires or the Art V2s, or you're on the BSCs and the HPS, and you're looking potentially at what's next, this is number one. It ticks too many boxes not to be useful. We're onto this like third evolution of surf foils, and that's not just Axis wide, that's every brand under the sun, essentially. The designers all seem to be getting to grips with combining a lot of elements that we've had quite a few different foils for and been able to put them into one. So the Surge turns better than we've had before, and I appreciate me saying this can come across very disingenuous, but again, it's the designer's fault, not mine. It turns better, it glides better, it pumps better, and it's got a bigger range of conditions that it can ride in. It lifts earlier than foils have done at this size especially, and yet it's still got the high end that we would want from something like a surf foil. So, difficult to hear, but unfortunately it's correct. And as much as Adrian doesn't like me saying it, it is killing a couple of the foils for me in my own use area. The Spitfire and the Art V2 are the main ones now, and I feel like although they're still in the range, it is slimming down a touch, so now the Axis range revolves mainly around Surge, Fireball, Pump and Glide, and what am I forgetting? Christ, that's not good, is it? Tempo, there you go. So the new Tempos. We've not done much of those in the UK here, and I knew we wouldn't because we don't do what the Tempo really is designed for. There's not a level at which that foil is useful yet. That's not to say we won't get there, but that's where this one comes into its own because it ticks more boxes for us. The first thing you'll notice then, jumping on Surge, and by all means if you need to demo anything, please give us a shout or any of the local retailers because they are all geared up now. The Surge is the best turning Axis foil that we've ever had. What we've had in the past, the Spitfire, the Art V2 and things, they're really good at yawing. They turn quite loosely on the yaw axis, which is great, it's fine, and you can yaw it and lean, but you don't get the nice smooth roll that we want from the likes of a surfboard, for instance. And that's where the Surge comes in. So that is the first thing you'll notice. And it's a nice progressive roll as well. I've ridden a few foils in the past from different brands. There was quite a looseness in the roll, and they were great, and it was definitely a certain feeling that you'd get used to, but this is not that. A lot more progressive. So those it felt like they would roll and you'd have to catch it before it went too far. These, they will progressively go as far as you want them to go. And depending on how much effort you put into it, it will do what you want it to do. So the roll is a really big one for us. Pumpability is probably numero 2. I've never been able to link waves, and I know this is all going to come down to personal not preferences, but my findings essentially, but I'm a pretty poor prone foiler. And pumping has never been something I've been able to master at all, especially on smaller foils. The surge has allowed me to link waves quite comfortably, a lot more confidently than I have done previously. So the pump on the surge is far easier. And what's really nice is you don't have to go up to the bigger sizes to get the benefit of that. All of them pump really well, obviously for their size, but that 890 that I've spent most of my time on, I can pump that, well, two or three waves quite comfortably until I run out of steam. You then get quite a bit of drive, and I use the word drive mainly in the pump. And what I mean by that is it feels like you don't just pump to stay high on the mast, you get forward momentum when you pump forwards. And that's something that's come from the evolution of the likes of the downwind, the higher aspect foils. So we never got it out of any of the foils until downwind racing became more of a thing. And as much as I might not be part of that world, I'm aware, and I think a lot of us were aware when we start looking at what the guys were doing during the big Hawaiian races and Australian races, they weren't trying to ride the wave they were on because they're in a race. They're trying to get A to B as quickly as they possibly can. So they were going from the wave they were on to the wave in front. And when they were on the wave in front, they were trying to get to the wave in front of that. And what it got the brands all doing, or designers all doing, was trying to make something that would accelerate forward. So you got a huge amount of drive in the Fireball, for instance, to get onto the wave in front of you. What they've now managed to do, what Adrian's managed to do, is put that essence into a surf foil. So it's still not the quickest foil in the world, and it will stay in the pocket. It's not like it's going to accelerate too much forwards. But should you want to pump off the back and go left, or go right, or go left, or go back or forwards, it feels like you can really choose where this foil goes because you're confident in the pumping, and it drives forwards a lot quicker. So it takes less effort to get to where you want to go. There's also still a really nice amount of glide, and I think that's getting really important for the parrowing element that we're looking at nowadays. So previously, the likes of the Spitfire, for instance, to get the turning that we got out of the Spitfire, which was a great foil for its time, it meant you lacked a little bit of glide because the aspect ratios were a little lower. And I know it's not just down to that, but that's what my brain says. So you struggled with the glide, and you struggled with the time that you had before you needed to figure out what was going on, i.e. you needed to get onto another wave. The Surge has a lot more glide there. 9.5 aspect ratio, so it sits sort of in between the Spitfire and the Art V2. Art V2 has always been around 10 aspect ratio. Spitfire's 7 or 8, depending on which size you go for. And relatively, the Surge is quite high in comparison to some of its competitor products at 9.5, but it doesn't slow you down in the turn, and it only helps you in the pumping and the glide. So big win there. I've only really used the 890 and the 830. As mentioned, the bigger sizes especially haven't managed to keep in stock yet. I'm 80 kilos on a good day. I'm a little bit more, but I like to say 80. And I've been using the 890 for power winging and light wind winging, and the 830 for anything that's sort of a little bit more powered. I've also put a 740 on demo simply because I've done some toe foiling sessions where the 830 has just been a little bit too overpowered. That's where I like the idea of a 740. So for me, my winging front wing is going to be the 830. If I'm powered, if I'm under power with a wing, or if I'm in some beefy conditions for anything, the 830 is going to be able to handle them a little bit more. If I'm power winging and trying to link bumps, and which I'm not that good at, so I need all the help I can get generally, the 890 is a really nice little extra little bit of glide between the two of them. It does mean it can't handle quite the same amount of speed, but I get the benefit of being able to link waves. So those are my two go-tos, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I then keep getting some really good reviews on the 1010 and the 950 from the likes of the subfoilers. So anyone that's riding sort of shorter, sharper bumps, some of the guys in Scotland, for instance, on the locks where the fetch is not huge, anything that stands up a little bit more, the Surge is really, really nice. When you look at the range, just to give you a brief when might you not use it, the Fireball's still much, much better at glide and all-out glide and speed. So if you're smashing around your local lake as fast as you possibly can, the Fireball is going to be the one to go for. The Surge isn't the fastest foil in the world. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't want to be. If that's where you're going to be spending most of your time, maybe the Fireball. And likewise, if you're out in some open water bumps and you're riding weaker swell or faster moving swell, which is essentially or tends to be a lot shallower swell, you need something that can keep up with the higher speeds of those waves, and that's where the Fireball comes in as well. So those are the two sort of main staples in the Axis range nowadays. And then I pair it with the latest range, oh, where is it? Here. Latest range of rear wings from Axis, the Surf Skinny. Relatively simple progression onwards from what we've had already, and that's what I really quite like looking at in the Axis range. Obviously we work with Adrian not closely, but we get to see what he's thinking in his mind, and you see the progression forwards in all of the ranges of the foils that we've got, and especially the rear wings as well. So the progressives have been out for a long time now, and we use those for nigh on everything depending on level and discipline. And then we saw the skinnies sort of come into their own as the downwinding stuff again. So as the Fireballs came out, we needed something that could keep up on the rear with the front wings. So the front wings wanting to go flat out all the time. The progressives are generally a little bit slower because they're a bit of a thicker cord, and the thickness is a lot more anyway. So the skinnies come out, really, really nice bits of kit, a lot faster moving, but they don't turn quite the same as the likes of the progressives. So if you want all out turning and surfing, the progressives. If you wanted your downwind glide, your skinnies, and that left a little bit of a hole in the middle where the surf skinnies come in, and you can see where they get their name from. If you're doing anything, again, wave-based, the surf skinny is a really good contender, well worth having a look at. 280, 300, 320. I'd say that 280 is going to pair really nicely with some really big foils where you don't need the stability out of the tail. The 300 is going to be a real sweet spot in the middle, your Goldilocks sort of rear wing, and your 320 is going to be really suitable for the likes of your smaller foils when you're going flat out and you need a little bit of stability. When you look at ability levels, if you are not already on the likes of a 325 progressive, if you're on something a bit bigger, stick with the likes of the 320. Likewise, if you're a slightly bigger bloke or you're not quite as confident on the water, go for the bigger ones. The 300 though is the one that I'm going to be spending as much time as I possibly can on. The cool thing is you also feel the drive forwards in the pump, the same way I talked about it in the Surge. You feel that with the Surf Skinny as well, so it only amplifies that element of the Surge, but that will also come into its own with any foil. So if you're just wanting to loosen up your existing setup, this is a really, really nice option to do so, whereas still maintaining a lot of speed and a lot of glide, you then get a lot of turning ability as well. Fuselage wise, Advanced Plus Ultra Short Fuse that's it. That's the only one that you really need to look at. It's not, obviously, but that ticks too many boxes to not be a strong contender for the main showboat of fuselages. Level-wise, that just seems to be the one that ticks too many boxes, way too many boxes. So everything I do personally is on an Ultra Short Advanced Plus. Open water, winging, prone foiling, toe foiling, everything happens on an Ultra Short Advanced Fuse, and that's where I generally want you to stick to, or want to stick towards. If you want something a little bit twitchier, you could go for a longer fuselage, or not twitchier, but quicker turning, you could go for a shorter fuselage. If you want something a little bit more stable on straight lines, if you're toe foiling big stuff, or if you're in the open water on a big spanny foil, you could go towards something a little bit longer like the short. But otherwise, the Ultra Short Advance is the Goldilocks fuselage. Any questions, give us a shout. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next video. Apologies for the ramblings.